In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Please be seated. Well, here we are, well into the season of Easter. Easter is not just one Sunday. Remember, we're in the great 50 days of Easter. And so we have a resurrection account in today's gospel reading. Today's gospel reading is that portion of Luke's gospel right after the Emmaus Road experience and right before Jesus' ascension back to the Father. So here we are, another Easter story, another resurrection account. And Jesus goes into the upper room where the disciples are all huddled there. They had heard news that he was among them, and yet they are terrified. They're terrified. They have fears and doubts, and Jesus goes in that upper room and he calls them out on their fears and their doubts. Just as we have fears and doubts, just as we know that the Lord is resurrected, yet we also have fears and doubts, and sometimes we are also terrified, just as the disciples were. Now, there is a difference between recitation and resurrection, is there not? Right? When we resuscitate someone, they might have blacked out and they come back and they're back with us and they just kind of pick up as things were, just like they were normal. That's recitation. Resurrection is a good bit different, isn't it? Resurrection, the resurrected Jesus means that he hasn't been resuscitated. He's actually experienced death, defeated sin, and he has come back changed. He is a new creation. He's the first fruits of what we will be one day as a new creation. So Jesus didn't have a scrape with death and he blacked out and he came back and they gave him some smelling salts and he's okay now and things are back to normal. No, he has been resurrected. He is a new creation and he has scars on his hands and feet. And that's how he shows me. We have the first church fish fry in today's gospel, don't we? And he eats a piece of fish. He's been resurrected, not resuscitated. So it's no wonder that the disciples are somewhat terrified. They have fears and they have doubts. And we can relate to this. In the last year, we have either confronted our fears and our doubts in a healthy way, or we have ignored our fears and our doubts in an unhealthy way, or we have focused on our fears and our doubts and we have allowed them to control us. Now, if you don't think that you have fears and doubts, well, just dig a little bit deeper. They're down there somewhere. And remember, doubts are just fears that we're not right. Fears and doubts. We all have fears and doubts. Maybe we have fears that we may have gotten coronavirus in the last year. Maybe we have fears about our job situation, about economic uncertainty. Maybe we have fears and doubts about some relationships that we hold dear that are at a stretching point. Maybe we have fears and doubts about our ability to repair and recover from hurricanes. Maybe we have fears and doubts over a number of many possible options the last year has presented us. But fears and doubts are nothing new to humankind. What is different is that in the resurrected Christ, we will not avoid fear and doubt, but we will healthily place them. We will know that the tyranny of our fear and doubt will not control us. We know that we might experience some fear, but that fear will not have the last word. That fear will not control our actions because we know the one who conquered fear. We know the one who conquered sin, conquered death, and places fear in its proper place at his feet. Fear and doubt. We all have them. The spiritual author, James Finley, he offers a beautiful meditation on how Jesus might help us heal our fears and our doubts. I'd like to share it with you right now. And I'd like to, if you choose, I'd like to invite you to close your eyes for a minute and think through this a waking dream with me. Now, if I hear snoring, I know I've gone on too long. So I invite you, we hear in the gospel that Jesus often goes off to a quiet place to pray. Sometimes he prays all night long. He goes off in solitude, and he has these peaceful, extended moments of prayer. So I invite you to imagine with me that Jesus is off. He's off in a quiet place. Maybe it's in the woods somewhere. And we're going to join him. We're going to join him. He's invited us to join him in this quiet, peaceful place of prayer. We go down this wooded path. There's not much that we hear. It's in the middle of the night. We might hear an owl or a frog, and we walk along, and the wood's clear, and there Jesus is. We see his silhouette. And as we approach Jesus, we can make out his figure a little more clearly. He's sitting on a log by a pond. We can see the moon reflected on that pond, and it's a quiet, still, and peaceful moment. And we see Jesus' eyes. They just pierce and penetrate us in a warm and welcoming way. And we're drawn into his presence. We kneel at his feet. He's seated. He puts his hand on our shoulder. And we come to him with a heart full of fears and doubts, and we are compelled just by his gesture and his eyes, the way he looks at us, to dump all our fears and our doubts onto him. We start speaking. All these fears and these doubts, these fears that we didn't know we still had. Some of them are from childhood, some of them into our adolescence and adulthood, some of them are presently weighing on us. And we just express every fear and doubt that we have ever experienced. And he seems to understand that more intimately and more clearly than even we do. And his presence just invites all those fears to be transferred onto him. And then he leans in towards us. And he says just a few short words, just a phrase or two. And when he says this, when he speaks these peaceful words to us, in some way, all those fears and those doubts have completely vanished. They have disintegrated. They're just out into the ether. They're gone. And we feel completely unburdened and at peace with the world. And so the question is, what is it that Jesus has said to you? What did he speak to you? What word or phrase brought you that deep and meaningful peace? That peace that passes understanding, that peace that gives you a glimpse at resurrection life. And so that's the meditation. That is what I ask you to carry on into the week. I want you to pray through this scene. Enter into this scene with Jesus, with your Lord. And unburden yourself of your fears and your doubts. And imagine what he speaks to you. And imagine how that word or those phrases have granted you the deep, deep peace that only Jesus can provide us.